I'd like to call to order the Town Commission regular meeting of September 26th. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please call the roll.
Mayor Tompeck,
Here.
Vice Mayor Kurzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Campo,
Here.
Commissioner Fender,
Here.
Commissioner Mayfield.
Here.
That brings us down to item 2, proclamations and presentations. First one is the Florida Association of City Clerks Master Municipal Certification presentation, and the District Director of the Florida Association of City Clerks, Renee Bissell, is here to make the presentation.
Mayor Tompeck, members of the Town Commission, town staff, and attendees, good evening. My name is Renee Bissell, and I'm the Florida Association of City Clerks Southeast District Director. I also serve as president of the Palm Beach County Municipal Clerks Association, and I am currently the town clerk for the town of Gulfstream. It is with great pleasure that I appear here this evening to congratulate your town on the recent accomplishment of your town clerk, April Stanches, upon receiving her Master Municipal Clerk designation. The International Institute of Municipal Clerks and its partner, the Florida Association of City Clerks, are professional associations that promote continuing education and certification through university and college-based institutes. IIMC's primary goal is to actively promote the continuing education and professional development of municipal clerks through extensive education programs, certification, publications, networking across the globe, annual conferences, and research. FACC's primary goal is to actively promote the continuing education and professional development of municipal clerks in the state of Florida by partnering with the Florida League of Cities and the Florida Institute of Government to meet the ever-changing educational needs of the city and town clerks and to improve their knowledge in areas such as public administration, law, management, elections, and many other disciplines. Currently, only 10% of the 14,755 members of the International Institute of Municipal Clerks have attained the Master Municipal Clerk designation. And of the 657 members of the Florida Association of City Clerks, only 20% have reached the Master Municipal Clerk designation. To achieve the Master Municipal Clerk designation, the first step is becoming a certified municipal clerk through the completion of the International Institute of Municipal Clerks approved Municipal Clerks Institute program conducted by the John Scott Daly Florida Institute of Government through the Florida State University in Tallahassee. Any Knowles fans here? Go Knowles, this is your chance. I'm not, I'm a Bulldog, so hey, sorry. This program provides 120 student instructor contact hours of in-depth courses in managerial and leadership skills, social and interpersonal concerns, and technical training needed to deal with changes taking place in government today. However, true professionals never want to rest on their success, but instead keep reaching higher. The Master Municipal Clerk Academy was established to further professional education of city clerks and to meet the challenges of the office. Academy members must demonstrate they have actively engaged in educational and professional participation that keeps them current with the changing events in the local government scene. Academy members seeking to earn the Master Municipal Clerk designation are required to attain 168 hours in advanced education with 80% coursework in public admin and 20% in electives, and attain 20 points in professional and social contributions that include attendance at professional meetings and conferences, honors, and awards received for specific individual achievements. This is quite a task considering the daily demands of the clerk's office. April is now a part of an elite group of professionals in local government, a group she could not have become part of without your commitment to support her efforts. In light of the speed and drastic nature of change these days, lifelong learning is not only desirable, it is necessary to keep pace with growing demands and changing needs of the citizens that we serve. Your town can take immense pride in April's educational accomplishments and achievement of this milestone. Finally, on behalf of the Florida Association of City Clerks President, Board of Directors, and its members, the Florida Association of City Clerks Professional Education Committee, and the Southeast District, We are all so very proud of you. Please join me in congratulating April Staunches on her impressive accomplishment as one of our newest Master Municipal Clerks. Well done. Can we get a picture if y'all all get in front of that and we'll come down there?
Sure.
Thank you, Town Manager and Commissioners.
So awesome, April.
Longer speech, longer speech.
I did it, Mom.
No. Close in. There we go. Get that Sewalls point.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Congratulations, April.
You're welcome.
Thank you for coming to present that to April. We really appreciate it.
Did it for Mom.
Okay, that brings us to the next item, which is the Treasure Coast Food Bank Hunger Action Month proclamation. Town Clerk, please read the proclamation into the record.
Master.
Master Town Clerk.
Whereas hunger and poverty remain issues of grave concern in the United States, the state of Florida, the Treasure Coast, and in Sewalls Point, with 30,311 children and adults in Martin County now categorized as food insecure. Sewalls Point is committed to taking steps to raise awareness about the need to combat hunger in every part of our county and to provide additional resources that citizens of Sewalls Point need. Sewalls Point is committed to working with the Treasure Coast Food Bank and educating people about the role and importance of food banks and other hunger relief organizations in addressing hunger and bringing attention to the need to devote more resources and attention to hunger issues. Whereas food banks and hunger relief organizations across the country, including Treasure Coast Food Bank, will coordinate numerous events throughout the entire month of September to shed light on this important issue and encourage involvement in its efforts to end hunger in the local community. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Sewalls Point Town Commissioners that September 2023 is Hunger Action Month in Sewalls Point and calls this observance to the attention of our citizens.
Thank you very much, and we have Alexandra Lord here to accept the proclamation.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Allie, and I'm the Director of Community Outreach at Treasure Coast Food Bank. On behalf of myself, our CEO, Judy Cruz, our staff, our board, and our volunteers, I would like to thank you for proclaiming September as Hunger Action Month once again. As a member of Feeding America, Treasure Coast Food Bank is leading the fight against hunger in our community by securing millions of meals and providing them to people facing hunger. We are proud to partner with over 300 local food pantries, soup kitchens, shelters, and schools on the Treasure Coast to provide resources. We'd love to have you come out and volunteer, start a food drive, or anything that you'd like to do to get involved. If you'd like to, please contact me or visit stophunger.org. Thank you.
And that brings us down to public comment, and I have two. First one is Kevin Madden.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Ms. Staunches, congratulations, quite an accomplishment.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
I'm Kevin Madden. This is my wife, Marguerite Madden. We live at 160 South River Road. The reason we're here tonight, well, first of all, we want to thank you guys for your thankless job and your service. I know it goes unappreciated many times. We live at 160 South River Road. We're concerned about what's going on, what's happened to our property and what's happening to our neighbor's property. We've got construction going on across the street. The property across the street is much higher than ours. There's been nothing done to mitigate the water and the land coming from that side of the street onto our side of the street. And if you can, April, can you pull up the video? Can they?
I have it. Are you ready?
Yep. So it's a simple problem to fix if they had started from the beginning, but they haven't. So it's cost me replacing my entire front porch due to rot and my lawn. The front porch cost me about $10,000. The lawn cost me, and the shrubbery, about $5,000. It's led to my wife putting up what looks like the front of the trenches in World War I in front of our house. Trust me, for what we pay in taxes and insurance and mortgage, we don't want it to look like that either. But that's our front porch on a good day. We want to know if there are some sort of rules about mitigating water on construction sites. I know I work in construction, and in Martin County, construction sites are required to keep their land and their soil and their water on the property. We're getting destroyed. What my wife put up there is now adding to our neighbors' problems. We've got another property south of us. They've tried their best to mitigate the problems, but that's all flowing down into Mandalay. You know, we were down here a couple of years ago talking about the pipes, the sewer pipes that we were putting to mitigate the water problem. Comes right up to our property. Those are getting filled with mud, soil, leaves. I'm sure the town's going to have to pay for an extra clean out if that's going to be done. And it should have been a simple fix. If the contractor had been told to put some sort of a French drain with rocks at the beginning, none of this would have happened. Now again, it's run all the way down Mandalay. It's filling up those culverts that have sewer pipes. It's cost me close to 20 grand to fix it. My house looks like hell. My wife has tried to call the owner, no return call. Went over and spoke to the contractor. He was belligerent, indignant, laughed her off, told her that he was best friends with the owner and they weren't going to do anything about it. There was some reference made to they've had enough problems here. And, you know, when I moved here, heck, I had a F-150 and had to hide it for a couple of years. And now I see guys on construction sites at 7 o'clock in the morning, guys coming dumping porta-johns at 7 o'clock in the morning. I remember the days when at 8 o'clock you'd see a parade of trucks coming down here. Everybody was in this parking lot. Now it's a construction site at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning. And I don't know what's changed. So, do you have anything to say? I'm done.
Thank you.
We've been in our same house for 26 years, and we love this neighborhood. We just, you know, ever since that piece of property across the street from us, they came in and they leveled basically everything. They took all the vegetation away, they left a couple of trees, but there was nothing there to hold the water back. And it just pours right into our front lawn. And if you can see, not only our front lawn, but you go up, there's 2 steps, and my front door is right there. So on a good day, on one of those pictures that we passed out, you can see a water line. I mean, on some day, that water line is going to be under my front door. So I'm not sure, you know, how we can sort of combat that. Right now, we're trying to protect the water from coming into our house by putting up those few little stones and sandbags. And I don't know what else to do. If I take those away, the water is a clear shot right up to my porch, under my front door. So, enjoy living here. I don't know what else to say.
Thank you. What was the address again? 160?
160.
Thank you.
On the corner of Margarita and South River.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, do we have any additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda?
Move approved as written.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Kurzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Campo,
Aye.
Commissioner Fender,
Aye.
Commissioner Mayfield.
Yes.
Mayor Tombeck.
Yes. Brings us to the consent agenda. I've got a couple of items I'd like to pull for quick discussion. E, F, and H. I don't know if anybody else have any items they want to pull for discussion?
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda with the pulled E, F, and H items as requested.
I'll second.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Campo,
Aye.
Commissioner Fender,
Aye.
Commissioner Mayfield,
Yes.
Mayor Tom Peck,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kurzman.
Yes.
Okay, E and F, it's a real quick question. Is Preferred Government Insurance Trust associated with the Florida Municipal Insurance Trust, or is it something separate? Now, the Florida Municipal Insurance Trust, I think, is part of the League of Cities, and if so, have we checked them for rates? Now, I'm not sure their rates would be any better, because everybody's rates have gone up astronomically over the last year, but I was just curious.
Okay, good evening. I do not know the answer to your first question if they're tied to the Florida.
No, they're not.
They're not, okay. So, and the answer to your other question is, no, we have not. I have not checked.
I might be able to
Commissioner
answer.
Campo.
I might be able to answer your question. The memo that I read said that our experience modification has gone up from 7.79 to 1.26 or something like that.
Yes, correct.
So, to answer the mayor's question, an experience modification is a factor that's established by an industry group, FCCI. It's kind of like FICO for your credit score. So,
And it takes 3 years or 4 years to come off your record.
right, so I guess it's not an insurance company-specific rate increase, but it is a systemic, significant increase that shows that, we've had either a lot of frequency or a lot of severity issues in our workers' comp, and that normally sticks around for a long time. And I know that you had, I think, a performance goal for the town manager regarding safety. Wasn't that one of the issues that you had on?
That was last year, was to prepare a safety manual.
Yeah. So
I
what-
wasn't, the way the insurance policies are right now, one little accident, I mean, a guy cuts his hand and you report it, it's going to cost you $50,000. That's the way it works, unfortunately. I was more concerned with the overall totals, if we had checked those against FMIT or anybody else to see if they had a better rate, and should we be doing that?
We did not do that this year. We can do that going forward for the future year or for future years. Regarding the workman's comp rate, I think it's the same. It's going to stick with us. It's just our rate factor. We did have one claim this previous year, and I think because we're a smaller entity and the size of the claim.
So the FCCI, which is the industry group that comes in, and they're not really, they don't share in the rates. Again, it's like FICO. So they will give you the worksheets for that experience modification calculation, and I'd be happy to help you look at that with
Okay.
you. There's also something called loss runs, which describe your claims, because a lot of times, you might not be aware of some of those claims. But again, I don't think it's an insurance company specific. I think it's more of it's kind of like if your FICO score all of a sudden went to 500, no matter if you went to Seacoast or First Bank of Indiantown or whatever, it would be all the same. So anyway, that's just my background.
Well, and I was specifically thinking about, hey, have we compared these rates recently with FMIT, which has always been, a fairly good organization to work with. That's all. That's on E and F, and on item H, and I'm a little embarrassed on this one because I think I must have missed something along the road here, and I think I need a little history on this. We talked about the communications plan last year, and I guess sometime during this year, we decided we needed some outside help on this, and I can certainly understand that. I was curious about how did staff decide on Firefly, and did we request a proposal? Did we look at alternatives? And it's 20 grand, so I'm hoping
Yes.
we've looked at others as
During the
well.
first year, which was last year, we had the communications plan as part of that. And as part of that is the public relations piece of getting information out. And so, yes, at that time, there were 3 different firms that we dealt with, and we decided to go with Firefly last year. So when we had that again this year, the allocation in the budget, and plus the fact that it's part of my goals again, with everything that's going on with all of our projects, it's best to, have somebody there to put out that information. So kind of what I asked for was a proposal that we could do information after a meeting and getting the word out as quickly as we can to the public, so our residents. So that's kind of where we are at.
On the proposal itself, I'm not trying to be a wise guy. I see the proposal itself as almost being a blank check. There's no, all it says is here's a rate, and up to $20,000. I see no estimate for any of the deliverables, and I see no schedule for any of the deliverables. And quite frankly, I'd have difficulty approving that kind of a proposal. And I don't know what the other commissioners feel, but I couldn't accept it the way it is, that's for sure.
Well, and again, I'm no expert on this industry, but when I did speak with the 3 parties last year, and they all give you a rate, they're professionals, so there could be, if we just take just the information off the meetings, we could have a 3-hour meeting, or we could have a half-an-hour meeting. And obviously, the half-an-hour meeting is going to cost a lot less to do than the 3-hour meeting, and just trying to do summaries and so forth. And, when we do events or have grand openings, ribbon cuttings, those type of things, by having somebody who can get those communications out in the appropriate format. And I thought that's what the commission was looking for in a communications plan, and if I missed the boat on that,
Well, I'm not saying, you missed the boat with me, let's put it that
Okay.
way. I'm not sure if everybody else is okay with, kind of a list of activities with no estimate for how long they'll take, or no estimate of when they might be finished. I mean, even, some of our most complicated engineering proposals have at least an estimate about how many hours for this design, or how many hours for the construction inspection services, that kind of thing. And I see nothing here. I feel like I'm signing a blank check, so I can't go along with that. Commissioner Campo?
Oh, well, I think, this is the missing link of the town manager's duties. He said he's reviewed others. Why don't we ask him to reach out to these folks and get maybe a better feel for approximate costs with a schedule, and maybe we could take a look at it in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'd be.
It's an odd-sized activity for us. There's not, it's not like a gallon of gas where you're going to get 30 providers, but I think adding some structure and schedule of deliverables would be a good idea.
And I think that's all I'm asking. Commissioner Mayfield?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to add, I understand your point. Some of the things, like the town manager said, the town meetings, it's kind of on as needed as we continually get more information or something comes up to release. So that might be hard in terms of a timetable, because you don't know exactly when those things are going to happen. I did want to note that I had on page 69, or the second page of it, the crisis communications. I think that they could, I'd appreciate a definition of crisis. I'm not sure, that can be a lot of things depending on who's having the crisis.
town manager.
So yeah, a little more detail could be good, but it's certainly not like a construction project. This is a words and as issues come up, so that's
Well,
fine. The 2 weeks is fine.
I think you're right, it's not, and I know it's not the same thing as a construction estimate, but if you've got a communications audit, you've got a communications plan, you gotta be able to put some hours against that, estimate of the hours and approximately when you think you'll have it done. This is a blank check, the way I look at it. And so, if it's okay with you, Mr. Daniels, I think
sure.
I think what
So,
Commissioner
yeah.
Campo has suggested would be a good idea, and
You want a motion, or?
No, that's fine. I'll just pull it and bring it back.
Okay. So then I will move that we approve agenda items E and F on the consent agenda.
I'll second.
please call the roll.
Commissioner Campo?
Aye.
Commissioner Fender?
Aye.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes.
Mayor Tompeck?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kurzman?
Yes.
Okay, that brings us down to item 7, public hearing on ordinance number 449, tree ordinance. Would the town attorney please read the ordinance title into the record?
Yes, ordinance number 449 is an ordinance of the Town Commission of the Town of Sewalls Point, Florida, amending Chapter 70, Habitat Management, and providing for severability, the repeal of loss and conflict, codification, and an effective date.
Thank you. Do we have any public comments? Seeing none, I'll move on to the commission. Is there any discussion?
I'd like to make a motion to move it.
There's a motion.
Other.
Second?
Restate your motion, please.
I think you moved the ordinance.
The ordinance.
You wanted to approve ordinance number 449?
Give me 1 sec.
Unless you have a bunch of changes that you still
Nope.
want to do in them.
I will second.
Okay, any discussion?
You better second.
I thought he said move it, and I was confused by that.
Okay, move it along.
Yeah.
Seeing no other commission
Just one comment that I would say to the residents from 160 South River Road. Because I haven't seen you here before, it probably would be best to meet with the town manager tomorrow to talk about some specifics. I don't want you to be here for 3 hours and saying, did anyone ever hear from us? Okay, so just throw that out there.
Okay, town clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fender?
Aye, absolutely.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes.
Mayor Tompeck?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kurzman?
Yes.
Commissioner Campo?
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you, guys and gals.
that brings us to resolutions. Resolution number 963, Florida City Government Week. The town clerk, please read the resolution title into the record.
A resolution of the Town Commission of the Town of Sewalls Point recognizing Florida City Government Week in October and encouraging all citizens to support the celebration and corresponding activities.
Is there any discussion?
Just to let you know, the League of Cities does the Florida City Government Week every year. It's an annual event. This year, they're asking for cities and towns to submit pictures of events that occur within the town. And I'm going to go ahead and put in that we're going to supply them with some photos from the town of Sewalls Point. And we have events coming up in October that, will fit the bill, between the Halloween events and other things that we have occurring. Like Saturday, we have the tree event and so forth. So I think it'd be a good thing for us to get, again, Sewalls Point's name out, and that'll be covered statewide, so.
No other comments? Please call the roll.
Is there a first and a second?
I don't think we
I'll make the motion to move it.
I'll second.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes.
Mayor
Yes.
Tompeck?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kurzman?
Yes.
Commissioner Campo?
Aye.
Commissioner Fender?
Aye.
Okay, the next item is resolution number 966, Form 6 exemption. Would the town clerk please read the resolution title into the record?
A resolution of the Town of Sewalls Point, Florida, relating to the decision by the State of Florida Legislature to enhance the financial reporting obligations of elected members and mayors of the governing body of a municipality by requiring the completion of Florida Commission on Ethics Form 6 instead of a less intrusive Form 1 as previously required. The Town of Sewalls Point formally requests the State of Florida Legislature to readdress the requirement and implement 2 exemptions contained within due to the excessive hardship small communities with volunteer elected officials will endure.
Thank you. We have any discussion? Vice Mayor Kurzman.
Yeah, before we do anything, I'd like to see how everything comes along before we put any restrictions or anything. By the time we get this project and see how we stand financially, as far as you were talking about the heritage lot, am I correct?
No, we're still on the
We're
Form
talking
6.
about
I'm on the
Form
wrong
6.
thing. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
We're on-
Geez,
Yeah, we're still on Form
I'm on the wrong-
Resolution number 966. Do we have any comments on?
Yeah, I'll move approval,
I'll second.
and then I'd like to have a comment, too.
Go ahead.
So have we had our Treasure Coast delegation with the legislators already?
The Martin County one is up,
Next
I
week.
think it's the 5th, if I recall.
And typically, it's the mayor and the town manager that attend that?
Yes.
Okay. So, Mr. Mayor, would you feel comfortable in reading this resolution or making this part of your presentation when you meet with them?
I can give it a shot.
Okay.
I don't know, they usually, they want to talk about specific appropriations, but if I can, I'll be glad to.
Okay, perfect.
I've heard people talk about lots of, like, people say a lot of things,
Okay?
so,
Because they're saying no one ever talked to us about it.
yeah.
So this is the first we've heard of it. So,
Okay.
okay, so call the question.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
So might this
Commissioner
come up in
Fender.
your exciting new committee?
No, my certain committee hasn't addressed this issue.
I mean, is it within that jurisdiction?
The other committees might be talking about it, but I know the Regional League, this one is a little, they were supporting it initially, but because this is more specific to the volunteer, there's a lot of people in the league who are not volunteer boards, you know, all the big, so to get a cohesive one item that every league member can support, this might not be it, but I know that they support the idea behind it, so, do you understand what I'm saying?
Idea behind not having it.
This specific resolution is for volunteer council people, and so there are a lot of members of the league who are not
They're not
volunteer, they're
volunteers,
paid.
got it.
So you won't get as much momentum behind that because they represent all those
Understood.
municipalities.
All right, a question that fits the resolution, I apologize. The main issue right now is they're not going to be in session until next year, if I'm correct, so nothing can be done until then, unless they open up an emergency session, if I'm correct.
I think they're doing some sessions on something in November,
We're
yeah.
doing committee meetings
Committee, yeah.
starting in November, and then the session starts in January.
Yeah, but usually nothing gets passed until the general
Well,
session in
yeah.
January.
Theoretically, it could be effective retroactive to January 1st of 2024.
Is there any way that they give an extension, possibly going to, let's say, April? Or I'll ask our attorney if you've heard anything that possibly getting an extension.
No, we're obviously following it for all of our cities, and, I mean, the law is going to go into effect if you're still in office on January 1st, then you're going to be required, unless there's a change, and who knows if the change will ever happen. If it does, it probably will happen in the session in January, February of next year. But if you're in office on January 1st of 2024, then you will have to fill out the new Form 6 for the 2024 year. Now, they always get filed in arrears, so you'd be filing it in June of 2025, but you'd be responsible for filing it if you served 1 day or 365 days in 2024. In fact, one thing we've been looking at for all of our cities is qualification periods, because many cities have elections in March, yours are in November, and at least in Palm Beach County, the supervisor elections has opened up the ballot for any special elections that need to happen in March, because they realize that there will be commissioners, certainly, you know, some of the communities we represent are already indicated they're going to be resigning. So if anyone is thinking about resigning, I'd ask you to get with Bob or myself pretty soon so we could talk to the supervisor elections about having an election in March, because I think the presidential preference election is going to be in March. And I think Bob and I just talked about this yesterday, and I don't think he's had a chance to talk to the supervisor yet,
No.
is will they be able to put any elections on here to fill any unexpired terms? And it's a horrible conversation to have, and I'm having it at every commission meeting because this impacts everybody. So basically, if you're thinking about resigning, do it by December 31st.
So what form do you envision our commissioners filling out June of 2024 for the calendar year 2023?
No, it'd be for the calendar year 2024.
No. Okay, let me ask the question again.
Okay.
What form do you anticipate our commission filling out on June of 2024?
The-
Covering the year
2023.
2023? Okay.
Right.
And that'll still-
And that would be your Form
So
1.
that would be-
still be Form 1.
That would be Form 1.
Right. So the Form 6 kicks in, anybody who's serving as of January 1, 24 going forward. Again, so if you serve 1 day in January 24 or 365 days, then come June of 25, you're going to need to fill out the Form 6 unless the legislature changes this law. And I know there's tons of cities. The mayor of Loxahatchee Grove has a similar resolution and similar meetings to, again, a smaller community, very different community than Sewalls Point, but a smaller community, a couple of thousand people. And, you know, they're also considering some of them going to step aside because it's such an onerous requirement.
Yeah, I know they've lost 2 commissioners in Jupiter Island already, and there's probably 3 more on their way. And,
So again, your ordinance talks about if there's a vacancy, and then being filled at a special election. Obviously, it'd be a benefit to have that election, financially to have the benefit in March, because they're already having an election. I don't know whether the supervisor would call another special election, for example, in June or in May, but March, there will be an election, and if the supervisor will allow municipalities to put it out there, then we're going to have to come up with a qualifying period. We may need to amend your ordinance to allow a qualifying period for, I'm making this up, from January 1st to January 15th, say qualify for the March election. So many moving pieces by this legislation, but anybody that's thinking about it, I'd say please talk to Bob and I so we can talk through the timing of an announcement so that the town could be prepared to move forward with an election.
Thank you. Any other comments? Do we get a motion to approve?
I think I made one.
You made one?
And I'll make a note.
I'm having trouble keeping track of these motions. Please call the roll.
Mayor Tompeck,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kurzman,
yes.
Commissioner Campo,
Aye.
Commissioner Fender,
Aye.
Commissioner Mayfield.
Yes.
Okay, that brings us to,
That was unanimous?
Yes.
that brings us to item 10, old business, and the Heritage Lot Discussion Direction. Mr. Daniels, you want to introduce this item?
Yes, I appreciate everybody attending. For those members in the audience, we had a presentation that was put on by the building official and myself at the lot that the town owns at 7 Heritage Way, basically to demonstrate what the setbacks were on that particular property and how it would look to configure a house, if you could configure a house on the property, with the stipulation of having a deed restriction should we sell the property for the huge banyan tree that, when you first look at it, it looks like it's on the west side of the lot, but now it looks like it's more towards the center part of the lot. But either way, it's a tree, and we didn't have the opportunity of having a volunteer for the town, Alan McPherson. Alan, can you come up and kind of fill the commission in on your review of the tree
Yes, sir. Again, I'm really sorry that I wasn't there earlier.
and your credentials? And
I'm a certified arborist. I've been a certified arborist since '03, so about 20 years. I've been in business the same time, probably 20 years, but I've been in the business 25 years. I was a former resident of the 167 South Sewalls Point Road years ago. Pretty familiar with the town, the trees, and the splendor of the trees. But not every tree is in the right place, and not every tree is the right tree. We're talking about the trees down on Plantation where I missed earlier. Those are the right trees, but even though they are the right trees, they're really not high-quality right trees. And they're certainly not in the right place. those trees, in my opinion, are a liability. I've seen a lot of trees in my days. I've worked just about every major hurricane there's been as a first responder since I've been in business. I didn't go to this last one up there, but I sent guys up there. Anyway, I know what it takes for a tree to go down, and it doesn't take much. I was out 2 weeks ago in Tequesta. A friend of mine was out of town, called and said, hey, a tree fell on my truck. I said, okay, I'll run down there and go look at it. So I asked the neighbors about the tree. They said, there wasn't a puff of wind, there wasn't a drop of rain, there was no indication that anything was going on until they heard the tree crack. The tree fell on a glass calm, pristine day out on the ocean, sunshiny day, but it wasn't for no reason at all. It fell because it was loaded with decay. It had disease, it was decayed. If you didn't know what you were looking at, you wouldn't know it. But as soon as the tree fell and broke, you could see the whole center was gone. And my feeling is a lot of those trees down there have the same problem, especially the big, tall ones. With the decay, the water can come right down in, soaking the bugs and everything else. In my opinion, I would condemn those trees for a lot of reasons. Liability, number one. They are the right tree, but they're not in the right place. If those trees were way out in the woods somewhere, okay, great. But those trees are a liability. I've saved many trees in this town, and I could take you on a tour and show you some of the magnificent oaks that I've saved. These are oaks, but they're not that magnificent. They really have a very low quality as far as being the right tree, and they are not in the right place.
Okay, are you talking specifically about the tree in question on Heritage?
It's not just one tree. You've got a base of probably 7 or 8 trees that are growing out of the same area, which in that case alone brings a little more risk.
And that cluster is on 7 Heritage?
Yes.
That's what you're referring to?
Yes.
Because it sounded like we were talking about the whole...
No, the trees that in specific that I'm here tonight to speak about are on 7 Heritage.
Yes.
They're in what looks like a park. I would have been there had I been able to get across the bridge a little faster from my house, but someday that'll happen. I know the town well. I've represented the town in the past as an arborist. People ask for trees to be removed, and hey, what do you think? When John Adams was here years ago, I spent a lot of time with John Adams driving around, and I have no problem saving a tree. These trees, in my opinion, aren't trees you want to save. Now, I don't know the background of the whole deal, but just saying, as a tree in the wrong place, with decay, with high risk, hey, they may never come down, but you don't know that. But having my opinion now being known to you all, I'm telling you, those trees are at risk.
Commissioner Finder.
And I'm not warning you, I'm not saying what to do, I'm not telling you what to do, but those trees are a risk, they're a liability. They have no real other value other than they're alive, and they're a good species. I mean, they are a native species, and I hate to condemn something like that, but I think those trees need to go.
Yeah. So, super appreciative of your experience and the testimony you're giving us and helping us weigh on this decision. I have a couple questions about what you just said, and I'm interested most specifically about the trees you mentioned that you saved. You said over the years you've been working, you've saved a lot of magnificent trees, and when you save them, how do you save them? I mean,
Well, when they were building the house on Mandalay, when I lived down there at 167, I was like, what's going on down there? Oh, they're going to build a house. So the tree that's halfway up the road before you get to River Road near their house is an incredible tree.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely incredible tree. That's one example. The homeowner, the buyer, wanted to knock it out, get rid of it, because they didn't like it. And I said, there's no way you can get rid of that tree. And I bet now they're glad they didn't. And then there's a development down here on the way to the restaurant down there, I forget the name of it. Prince Langford's old place. There's a major development where they took, I don't know, 40 acres maybe, then subdivided it and then developed it.
Langford Landing.
What is it?
Langford Landing.
Well, there's a few there, but I think this
That's the
is.
name of the development.
Okay, but this is further back. It's more of it's not a single family, but it's not a major development, an HOA like,
Plantation or Castle Hill?
before Castle Hill.
River
It's,
Oak.
it's
Yeah.
back this way.
River Oak.
And it has gates and it's white and you go in and I think there's porpoise or something in there.
Oh,
I
yeah.
saved all those trees, every one of those. They want to knock them all out because they could do more things in there and I didn't like the idea of it. So I'm not afraid to condemn a tree, but I'd much rather try to save one if it's the right tree in the right place. And I've heard, you've all heard that before from FP&L. I mean, it's,
Do you ever move one?
pardon me?
Do you ever move a tree?
Have you moved a tree?
Relocate?
I've moved a lot of trees.
Yeah.
Yeah, those aren't worth moving.
Yeah.
They probably would never survive. For one, if you go to lift that thing, it might not even support itself. The weight of the root ball and I just, they're not even worth, it's not worth the risk. I moved a lot of trees.
What's the largest tree you've ever moved? I mean, how large a tree is
probably-
movable? Like,
Probably a root ball as big as this room right here.
yeah.
Down at Nova University, they had some big oaks down there they wanted to move. And pick them up with a crane. You just put like an axle, basically, a big heavy piece of steel, solid, right through, and then you can lift with the crane. So we've got a big enough crane.
How far'd you move it?
We put it on a low boy and moved it across campus,
Oh.
probably half a mile maybe.
All right.
But we didn't go down the road. We had to pull back limbs for power lines and lights, and, I mean, it took
Yeah.
all day.
Yeah.
And then at Royal Point Sienna, we did probably 60 feet across, 80 feet high after that oak. I mean, the root ball on that oak stood like this tall. And, you know, as a first responder, I've seen a lot of trees go over. We probably are under the wrong impression, most people, that the roots are real deep. Well, the roots don't need to be real deep here. They only need to be deep enough to get the water and support the structure of the tree. But that's where they'll fail, right at the turf line, like, right at the flare where the tree comes up. If it's ever been anything over that flare, that's going to rot right there. And the practice of putting mulch all the way up on the bases of the trees, that creates rot too. That's a big no-no. You're just burying the tree. But those trees, they're not worth moving. I think they're a liability. I mean, if you put a fence around it and didn't let anybody go near it and you just want to look at it, probably not even that nice to look at. I mean, if you drive around town, there's trees everywhere that are incredible. Everywhere. On every street. I've never seen such a community with trees that are just so natural and so magnificent. But I don't, in my opinion, feel that those trees are worth keeping. I think they're a liability.
Thank you. Any comments or recommendations from the commission?
So you brought him here why?
Just to have an education, you know, obviously I was hoping that we could do this at the lot so you could see and Alan would have an opportunity to point out certain things with the particular tree, but that didn't work out. You know, it's a hard decision that, you know, we have to make, and I'm just trying to provide the commission with as much information as we have. Do we, you know, obviously the options are the same, you know, do we keep the deed restriction on the lot and sell the lot for what we can? Do we, you know, don't put the deed restriction on and sell the lot with the availability of removing that tree to build a home? Or do we put a deed restriction on the healthier trees that are on the east side of the lot? So we're protecting younger trees so that they can flourish. And younger trees, I'm not sure the age, Alan, if you
Oh,
can
those
take a
trees on
stab
the
at.
east side are a lot younger. I mean, they're much smaller. Same species, a little more immature, but if you start disturbing those bases of those trees, you're definitely going to impact that tree. It's struggling now to keep itself stable, to stabilize itself. It's been there a long time, might not go anywhere ever, you never know. But the risk is not worth the reward. You get near those bases, those trees aren't going straight down with their roots. They are flaring out because they don't need to go down and get the water. They're flaring out to support itself.
Okay, so what we currently do have is that we've instructed One South Beach International Realty to sell the property with the current deed restriction, and the real issue here is, do we want to change that to remove the deed restriction? What's the pleasure of the commission? Vice Mayor Kurzman?
My suggestion would be, if the tree's not worth saving, whoever buys the lot, require them to put maybe 6 or 7 oaks in there to replace the current oaks.
Well, I don't think you necessarily want to do that if they have to remove the large tree. We just passed an ordinance that we've been tortured by for 3 or 4 months here. It tells them exactly what they have to do.
Torture.
They, in order to get a permit to cut down that tree, they have to have a mitigation plan.
Yes.
So I don't think you need to make any.
You heard the plan. That's excellent. Well stated.
Yeah, so that's the whole idea of what we were doing.
Well, it's one of two things we're going to do. A, you're going to leave it alone, you're not going to do anything with it, we're not going to sell it. B, if you wind up selling it, there's no way you could build on it. It's just, we saw what's there today, you have to, it's not worth
a
it.
buildable lot. I mean, you don't want to get anywhere near those trees. You don't want them over your house, you don't want to impact those root zones. It's not a really good idea.
You're being told by a professional, you're sitting in the A or B. A, you're going to strip the lot down and sell it. B, you can leave the lot alone and it's just going to remain.
So I'm
Town
kind
property.
of gathering here that it's not a homeowner that wants to take a tree out and build a house.
No.
It's.
No.
That liability has to be passed on with knowledge. I mean, if you're selling that lot, you need to tell those people, these trees aren't something you need to get rid of that liability somehow legally with your attorney.
Okay.
That would be my recommendation if you're selling that lot and that's yours.
Okay, any recommendation or a motion? I'm sorry, Commissioner Campo.
I think we're coming full circle. Kaya, we tried. And we had, we've come full circle on different things. I think it's essentially going to come down to the value of that lot and whether we can allocate those resources to enhance the tree canopy beyond that one lot. And my suggestion would be to sell, my suggestion as a possible talking point, I know you're not passionate about it, but I'm passionate about $635,000, which is probably what we would get from that lot if we had the ability to just sell it and let the homeowner build on the lot. And my suggestion would be that the commission would take a percentage, 10 or 20%, $120,000, let's say, and put that in a fund that we would devote for planting trees in the right place so that we can have something to look forward to into the future. I think you can get a lot more out of that than you can that tree right there. To me, that one branch looks, it's all filled with moss, looks totally dead. So the value that we would get from that lot is approximately 1/3 of what our ad valorem tax rate is for 1 year. So I'm not passionate about getting rid of a tree that's not in good shape, but I'm passionate about being better stewards of idle assets and using that money for the road improvement project and enhancing the river quality. So I think that's where we could go and still save face, is allocating 20% of the proceeds for a tree program, and we can involve the community. We've got this tree program that I've been working with Rachel Snyder Saturday, and we'll continue on an Arbor Day. We're going to have a tree in the town hall where the septic tank, I mean, how symbolic. I mean, there's a lot of mileage that you can get out of that. So I think that's probably the direction that it could go, and that's what it had started to be, was we were trying to get the lot at 78 South Sewalls Point Road so we can have an STA. It was almost the same exact size, almost the same value. You would get approximately $600,000 if you told the new occupant that they could get rid of that cluster of fragmented trees. And you'd get, I think we heard the realtor say the other day, $35,000 as a building permit fee and $1,000 or $2,000 in ongoing income. So to me, it's just allocating, you have assets. You have an asset in your left pocket. It's that lot, but now you put it in your right pocket. It's cash. It's something that we can decide where these trees should be located so that we can enhance the community. And so that would be the way to go. But, I guess the big question is, if the tree fell down while no one was looking, would it make a sound? And I think that the commissioners probably would like to wait for it to fall down. And, I just think not personally, but like in general, an elected body is probably going to be, not motivated by the liability. It's a vacant lot. If anyone's playing on a vacant lot, all of a sudden a tree
But
falls
down
down.
the road, it's not going to be a vacant lot.
Well, the only way it's not going to be a vacant lot is if we sell it and allow someone to chop that down.
How do you feel about this? This is an idea. Allow them to make that decision, and that eliminates your liability. You pass it on, say, if you want to take them out, we're going to approve it.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
we are not liable for these trees once this transaction occurs.
Yeah. That's,
Then
yeah.
you'll get,
but,
you got both pockets,
Okay, Commissioner
but you
Bender?
give it to the homeowner.
I was just going to add to
Is
that.
there any support to selling it and setting aside 20% for trees to be planted throughout the community and
Well, that-
more ideal places?
That was why I pressed my light on the buzzer, because that part of what you said, I completely agree with. I think those are noble and appropriate actions we should be taking, and certainly there should be a mitigation plan for whatever happens here. But I think the concern isn't so much that, which is critical, but it's that if we implement when that plan that you just described gets implemented, you'll be planting what? 10-year-old trees, 20-year-old trees? How long will it take to replace a 100-year-old heritage oak? The problem is not the replacement of the trees, or even thank God we now have a mitigation plan, but that we're bulldozing over trees that we cannot replace. I mean, that's why I keep asking you about, how about moving them or something? Because even the smaller trees in there are massive oaks that are probably immature 50-year-old oak trees.
It costs you probably $100,000 to move.
That was what was devastating about the Oakwood Drive 10 place hit, because, we can get a mitigation plan on the trees. We can't replace a 50-year-old oak tree. You stood under that canopy an hour ago like I did, and it's majestic. You can't replace that. I don't know how to replace that unless we can get him to move it,
I've moved some pretty big trees into town. I've moved the tree in for Ms. Smith up there on the hill when her tree died, she wanted a tree in there. We brought in something probably 50, 60 years old, but they're not 100.
Well,
They're
I'm not saying, I'm saying canopy. I'm talking about sizable, I don't really care how old it is, but I just know those, hard to replace a 50-year-old tree. And even when we put our mitigation plan in, we're not going to wait around for it to become 50 years old, right?
Right, none of us will see it.
Yeah, that's right. But we should plant those little acorns, no question. But I'm worried about the short-term devastation, right? And also the constituency is going to backlash on that as well, by the way.
Commissioner Mayfield?
You can do a density study, you can drill those trees, and you can see whatever's going on in there, if you want to spend some money on those trees to see, you know, what is safe, what isn't safe. You know, I don't see inside those trees, but I've seen inside a lot of them after they fail. There is a way to study that and go in and figure that out.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I was going to say that from the beginning, it was my hang up with selling this lot is I think land's a valuable asset. Like, you know, Commissioner Campos said, it's two assets. I think land is valuable. We don't have that much. In theory, it could make a great park one day, you know, so it's just, my idea was you're just kind of changing your asset, and I think land is valuable. So, and the trees being on it was a bonus, and they're beautiful. But I think Commissioner Campos' solution sounds somewhat reasonable. I mean, we're not going to move, I wouldn't support moving the tree, spending $100,000 on a old tree that an arborist says is not in good shape. It's just not practical and fiscally responsible. So I think you all need to decide whether you still support the idea of selling the lot, and then if you're, you know, if you are, then I think your solution sounds, or your suggestion sounds reasonable, and those trees will someday grow old, and other commissions will be talking about the 100-year-old oaks that we supported, so.
Commissioner Campo?
So I would have a suggestion to direct staff to come back to us with a sketch or an estimate on, let's just say, $120,000. If we went to Dennis or one of our vendors and said we had $120,000 to spend on brand-new oaks, and, you know, what would that purchase as far as, you know, 2 trees that are 30-inch caliber each, or, you know, 100 seedlings, or, you know, some combination. That might at least kind of move the thing up the field a little bit.
And where would you plan on planting them?
Well, see, that's the thing.
I could see a long process to figure out where to plant those trees.
Well, I think that would be part of the proposal, is, you know, going to our landscape crew that knows the town. Like, we had 2 trees in front of the plaza. Again, I call them Charlie Brown Christmas tree oaks. They've never rooted. I don't know what the problem is. But if there was our landscape that does all of our common areas, it was Dennis, I think we're in the process of moving that. But if we went to them and said, hey, if we wanted to get the maximum impact, that's on a dead-end road. I mean, how many people are really driving by that tree? It's probably less than 10. So maybe come back to us with a plan of maximum impact as far as visibility and what we could get for $120,000. And at least, you know, we have something that we're working with.
I like the concept. I'd want to make sure, remember you know, we bought the Riley property for, I think it was $2.2 million, and a certain portion of that was associated with STA. And Joe, you might refresh my memory, but I thought the STA was about $500,000, $600,000, somewhere in that ballpark.
600.
So we were planning on offsetting that with this property. So I wouldn't necessarily have a problem with setting aside some of the proceeds from the Heritage Way sale, as long as we make ourselves whole on the STA on 78.
Right. Well, again, it's also putting it back on the tax rolls. So we're going to have some recurring income moving forward. And at $1 million, they said it's a $35,000 fee. So let's just, you know, we're just spitballing numbers. But if it's 600,000, we took, you know, 100,000 or 120,000, put it in a tree fund. We used the other 500,000. We have some money. So could you maybe work something up?
Sure.
Okay. At least it's, you know, moving forward.
Vice Mayor Kurzman.
Yeah, I support 100% what you said. The other thing is, I'm sure if we put word out that, are there property owners that would be interested in putting oaks on their front lawn, that we could actually do that, especially in areas where they're like a little bit closer to the road, so it could create a canopy in the future. And worth a shot that way, and wouldn't be a bad idea to put some oaks on the Riley property at all. Since we have it right now, we could put it on there and nobody's going to cut it down. So,
I think we have consensus.
Well, I'm wondering, do we want to vote on a recommendation to remove the deed restriction and get One Southeast International Realty working on the sale? We've already asked them to work on the sale, but they're struggling because of the deed restriction.
Well, I don't know that the deed restriction actually was recorded, was it, Glenn?
No. It's going to be recorded with the sale, I believe.
Right. I think you just drafted it, and sellers are aware that that would be the restriction, but I don't think it's been recorded.
Well, can you tell Yara Bashur that we're going to remove the deed restriction?
If that's what you all decide.
Well, I think that's where we're headed.
That's where we're heading.
we voted on it, didn't it already a thing?
No, we never signed a listing agreement with her, though. So that's,
the
let's put together a game plan first, and then, once we're all on the same page, because I think we're in the same direction, Mayor, but I don't know that we're all feeling good about the,
Okay? What's your recommendation?
my recommendation is to direct staff to meet with our landscape professionals to come up with a plan that would utilize $120,000 of proceeds to purchase oak trees that would have the maximum impact for the community and contribute to the tree canopy. And at the same time, present not just the cost, but also location.
All right, and that to me, and maybe I'm missing the boat again, that sounds like step 2. How about step 1 first? In other words, we have to sell the property before you get the $120,000, so we're not be able to sell the property until we remove the deed restriction.
Well, I think the other commissioners might want to look at more specifics before listing the property. That's my impression.
Is that what you're thinking?
The one thing I will say is, the only thing is, there's very few lots left in this town, period. And there's one on Mandalay that's completely empty right now, and they're asking $900,000 for it.
Well, I see it being more a common area, like, I mean, you know what the oaks are between our intersection and Hutchinson Island? Okay, I mean, we could do that on our main road. We could do that on our portion of A1A. I mean, wouldn't it be ironic that we're planting trees and putting in septic to sewer? I mean, that's a good story, you know?
Yeah.
Mayor, you're saying that first we need to remove it from the deed, but I thought they said it never actually made it?
Well, there
In the deed?
hasn't been, but I assume that we're not making any progress on selling the property because of the proposed deed restriction, let's put it that way.
Or she hasn't been given the okay to continue?
We haven't signed a listing agreement because they felt it was in the best interest of the town
that.
to not have the deed restriction. I believe the vote that was taken, it might have even been before I came on board, I think it was when Dan was here, to have the deed restriction, it was written up either by Glenn or Susan, and I have the deed restriction because we had to place it in our advertisement when we...
The language.
The language for it, right.
It's not been
But it hasn't been reported, and the intent from, I believe Susan had told me, and correct me if I'm wrong, Glenn, but the intent was we notify everybody that we are going to be recording this deed restriction as part of the transaction. So I think the appropriate thing is if you want to remove the deed restriction now and we can market the property, just have a vote to remove the deed restriction and go ahead with the listing with the firm that we chose.
Is there a motion that reflects Mr. Daniel just said?
I'd like to be a consensus builder, Kaya. I know that we've been back and forth on this a few different ways, so would you rather see a written plan from a contractor on how we could use that money to impact the trees before?
Yeah, like I said, the whole, you guys all decided to sell the lot, which to me is the big, sell a lot or don't sell a lot. And I was always just don't sell the lot. But now that you're selling it, any workaround with the tree, I think is a bonus, but it also makes sense to sell it. And that means get rid of the deed restriction. So I think that makes sense. If you want to sell it, you got to get rid of that tree or allow them to get rid of that tree. So we do that. And then, yes, move on step 2 with, I like the idea of setting aside stuff to purchase more trees, so.
Okay, so
I mean, I'm comfortable as long, you guys, I assume you're gonna follow through with wanting to sell it, so I don't need any.
so you're comfortable in listing the lot, which basically, there is no deed restriction. There is no deed restriction, so that
Correct.
really does not
Okay,
exist.
I agree. If it's not actually there, then there's no need to vote to take it off.
Okay, do we need to bring back One Southby's and tell them, sign the agreement and let them get going on this?
Why don't we also simultaneously direct the town manager to circle back with the Realtor? Okay, Bob?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, your
We're gonna be
motion,
meet- we're
your
gonna be meet-
motion and the Realtor thing, and then come back, and then we'll vote.
I mean, the good thing is we get to meet twice in October, so we'll meet in 2 weeks. So, okay, so we'll add to the motion, April, that the town manager will meet with the Realtor and renew the game plan for listing. So that would be my motion.
I'll second it.
Just
Call the roll, please.
just clarification, if I may, renewing the game plan is listing the property.
Renew the game plan for selling the property.
Okay.
I don't know if every box was checked for them doing the listing. I don't know, we kind of got short-sighted there, so,
Okay.
whatever you have to do to talk to them about the next step.
Okay, we get a second on that?
Yes, Dave did.
Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Kurzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Campo,
Aye.
Commissioner Fender,
Aye.
Commissioner Mayfield,
Yes.
Mayor Tompak.
Yes. Okay, that brings us to item 10B, Florida City Gas. The gas line update, Ms. Witter? Now, do you have an intro here, Bob?
Yes, as you know, we've discussed in the strategic planning session, I think even the one before I came on board, about the need for natural gas in Sewalls Point. So when it came up again, and especially during our CIP discussions, I had reached out to Florida City Gas to see what their plans were, if any, and I think there was, for those of you that are interested in gas, I think there was some great news that we got. Thank you, Alan. There was some great news that we got, and Jordana's here to confirm that and then tell you where they stand with providing that service to the residents.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So first and foremost, pleased to inform that we have successfully secured a strategic investment of $1.5 million, which will be instrumental in the construction of the approach main. Initially, we were going to be bringing it from Rio, but we've decided that it would be a better route to bring it from Jensen Beach. So that's what the plan is right now. I heard back from a lot of the residents, and probably about 90% of the residents that I heard from were very excited to have natural gas. Currently, we are in close collaboration with town authorities to come up with a plan for permitting. That's where we are right now. Any questions for me at all?
Yeah, I'm just curious. I assume you're going to run the main straight down Sewalls Point Road, and Joe, we got plenty of room. We just put a pipe anywhere, right? No problem. But I'm wondering, eventually, if $1.5 million that you have, how much is it going to cost the residents to hook in?
So that's something that we're still working on. We're planning to do more like a AEP where it's, well, we'll discuss it with the mayor and the town manager as far as how that will work. As of right now, the plans are for us to install the main line and then work from there. So pretty much the skeleton of the whole thing, and then residents can choose if they want to have a service line extended to their home specifically.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes, thank you. I don't really have a question, but I just wanted to, because I had spoken to the town manager. I've compared to a lot of the other projects we do, which take years and years, this one seems to have taken off. So I was fine with exploring it, but it almost sounds like now it's happening. I'm not personally, and I don't hear, people don't ask me for gas. I know that there's some other commissioners that are into it. It's not a topic that comes up amongst my conversations. And we're doing so many things and putting so many things in the ground. I'm not really into this project, putting in natural gas. I realize that it's going to be paid for, which is huge, because that's usually the number one problem we have. But it all kind of seems a little too good to be true. Maybe that's not the right way to phrase it, but I grew up here and we never had natural gas. Maybe it's the whole idea of putting the flammable gas all underneath the ground everywhere. Like it's people, well, I haven't really been hearing a clamor. I know that you got a lot of input back that people wanted it. So clearly they're there, but I also know that when you send a flyer and it looks great and, hey, do you want to go do something, but people aren't necessarily hearing the whole story or really thinking this through necessarily. So I'm just expressing my trepidation at this, and I'm not really thoroughly excited. I think it seems like a lot. I mean, we can barely handle the projects we have, and now we're going to take on another project, but that's just my opinion.
Vice Mayor Kurzman?
Yeah, and I appreciate your concerns with that, Kaya, because I grew up with it, and to be honest with you, one of my neighbors across the street from me, Bob, was a former firefighter in Miami. He said the biggest danger is a propane tank. It's like sitting on a bomb in your yard, and there's so many propane tanks in Sewalls Point. They represent more of a danger than the gas line. Natural gas is actually a good thing. The first thing is, if you have a generator, your generator could keep running. You don't have to worry about filling up a propane tank. It is clean, and it's very efficient. It's great to cook with. I mean, I'm biased toward that over an electric stove. It's great for your water heater. It runs good on a water heater. I mean, I've lived with it my whole life. And where I lived before, when we had Sandy, we didn't have power for close to 3 weeks. And my generator ran for those entire 3 weeks. My refrigerator never went off. Eventually got cable back, TV, air conditioning is needed, later on heat. Plus we had a well, so it had water coming in. My neighbors were coming over taking showers because they didn't have generators. And it's good for that reason. And it's actually a lot safer than propane by far. It's something I know when I had my priorities when we brought this up when I first became a commissioner. One of the things on my top of my list was getting natural gas. And I had now 3 different town managers call about it. That was my third. It's something that I feel it's a valuable asset to come in and to have a chance and to have somebody actually give us the funding to come in and do this, providing that it's not going to be a lot of cost from the consumer to hook up. I think it would be a wonderful thing to have for the residents that do want it. I wouldn't want to deprive somebody of it.
Mr. Torcivia?
We would suggest that if we're going to go down this path, that we look into a franchise fee, where the town may be able to receive from revenue from the company for using our right-of-way to put in the national gas pipeline. So I know that Indian River Shores up in Brevard County just did that, and I think I'm sure if there was 4%, I think there was the franchise.
I'm not sure of the number off the top of my head, but I can
Right.
definitely find out.
So other communities are doing this, and we've looked at other communities, so you may be able to receive a franchise fee, and we just started looking at, we just talked about this, whether it's by an agreement or by ordinance. In the past, these were generally by ordinances, but more recently, they've been done by agreements. So, we can report back on that if you decide to go down this path. It wouldn't take a ton of research, and then it would be, because we're going to be calling the Indian River Shores attorney tomorrow to see how they navigated this.
Commissioner Mayfield.
Yes, I actually do have one question now that I was thinking about and talking about. How, you said there's money for installation. Where does that money come from? Like, how, is it some kind of grant or like the 1.5 million? What is it? How is that?
Strategic investment funds from our company. So we invest in projects that we think are feasible or, that will have a good return for us.
Okay. So gas must be, when we talk about underground and electric or whatever, that was something that we would have to pay for and whatnot, but somehow gas must be more profitable, or something?
I haven't really compared on that. I wouldn't be able to speak on that.
Yeah.
But as far as a consumer, which would be you, it is more efficient and it is cheaper than propane and comparable to electric as well. So
It's just
definitely-
amazing. The
definitely
money's
something-
falling out of the sky to do
The
this.
thing about gas is that's really, it's an optional utility, okay?
Right.
Nobody has to have gas. You have to have electricity, so when it comes to moving the power line, they're not going to give you any flexibility, they're going to charge you for it. But when it comes to adding an additional service, additional utility here that you don't have to have, there's a lot more flexibility in terms of where that money comes from, and they've obviously made some determination that based on the number of homes down here and based on the number of people and that are interested, that they can make some money.
Okay.
Which brings back the issue about how much it's really going to cost each individual, okay? Because remember, it's not just a question of hooking in, it's a question of replacing your hot water heater, your dryer,
Stove,
your stove possibly, if you want to do that,
generators.
and generator, that's right. And sometimes that determination is based on how many appliances that you're going to hook in. If you're going to, maybe if you're hooking in 4 or more appliances, a pool heater is very expensive to run on electric, a lot less expensive to run on gas. So I think there's a lot of good options here, and I think we'll be interested in hearing about, some of the costs associated with it. And naturally, Florida City Gas would have a very strong rebate program for those of us buying appliances who wish to have, we gave out, $400, $500, $600 rebates for people who would switch from electric to gas. And that would almost cover the cost of the new appliance. And Commissioner Mayfield, I hear what you're saying, and when you first said it, the first thing that came to my mind, and you'll understand this, you've never had gas before. If you had gas before, you'd understand why it's terrific. And if you grew up with gas, which a lot of us did in the Northeast, you didn't even think about it. You had gas, you had electricity, what? And of course, the reason why it's a lot safer is that natural gas is lighter than air, and propane isn't. That's why when you're lighting your grill, if the igniter is not working quite right, it'll blow up on you. Well, not blow up on you, but it'll blow back.
Yeah, I had a resident who, when the fires came out, said that, like, when there's a natural disaster, that they have to turn off the natural gas or something, so she was talking about something about how it's dangerous in a natural disaster, that you had to turn off the gas so that it wasn't running through the pipes. I don't know.
That's a misconception.
Okay.
We don't turn it off.
Okay.
And that's one of the benefits of having natural gas, it's underground. Now, there were cases where, it doesn't apply to Sewalls Point, but if you had natural gas at a trailer park, we would turn off the natural gas at the trailer park because, that had a good chance of blowing away in a hurricane, but not our kind of houses here.
Gotcha.
And obviously, if a house is on fire, the fire department automatically turns off the gas.
Do you need a motion to talk about the franchise fee? Okay.
No, I think it's pretty basic research for us to do.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Just to update you on a couple other things, Joe has gotten with the Florida City Gas engineers. We're hoping to get further conversations so we can work out the logistics of the gas lines versus the sewer line, water line, and outfall lines that we're putting in. So, Jordana, whatever you can do to help push that piece along, I think, because we have a $10 million investment that we have in just one phase of our project. So we just want to make sure that we definitely are coordinating the efforts. And then the other issue is, as you know, we utilize generators for backup power for the pumps. So if we were to get a real bad storm and we lost electric power, we would bring the pumps out. Well, if we had gas available, we could have a gas hookup for the pumps instead of having to worry about, having to go fill up the generators with diesel and everything and then having to go out and refill them. Obviously, a permanent connection would also be better for public safety in that regard. So I just wanted to add those two things to the discussion.
Yeah.
Jordana, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you,
Appreciate it.
everyone.
Thank
Have a
you for
good
waiting.
Of
Christmas
course.
came early. And you did a great job.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to item 11, new business, RFQ 2023-002, professional engineering and CEI services. Mr. Daniels.
Yes, as you can see, we went through the RFQ process for our engineering services, and the two firms came out. We're kind of, as the discussions that I had with the commission, and kind of in my mind, I was, although we're not restricted to the top two firms, they all seem very qualified. But at least looking initially at the top two firms for doing the work of the town, retaining the relationship that we have with CapTech, they came out number one, and CMA is the second group, and they're an engineering firm out of West Palm, but they do have some projects that they've done up in the Martin County, St. Lucie County area, from what I recall. So I would just like to make a recommendation that you all ratify that decision that I'm going forward with. And we're going to look at each project individually and weigh out what's best for the town.
Okay, any commission comments?
I'm sorry, maybe I wasn't paying attention. So we're going to have then how many engineering firms for the continuing service? Basically the two, CapTech and CMA?
Correct.
Okay. All right, sure, I'll move approval of that recommendation.
Second.
And just a quick question, Mr. Daniels. You said the top two, but you could use any of them
Really,
if you
for the
wanted to.
procurement process, it's an RFQ. So if we saw that maybe one particular firm had an expertise that maybe we didn't have in the other two firms, yes.
Okay.
So there's nothing illegal with the process. We followed everything that we had to. It's just that, just for the part of concentration, instead of being all over the place, my plans are to concentrate on those two firms right now.
Should I change the motion then?
No.
Okay.
I think,
No, just a question.
No, it's a good question. It's a good question.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Campo?
Aye.
Commissioner Fender?
Aye.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes.
Mayor Tompeck?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kurzman?
Yes.
And next item is 11B, Code Enforcement Board, alternate member requirement. Mr. Daniels.
yes, I reached out to our town attorney. We had a resident contact me and bring to light the fact, and I already knew what our city ordinance was, our town ordinance was for the Code Enforcement Board. And with having the 5 appointees, each commissioner picking individual for the slot, and then having 5 alternates, There is a state statute under 162, I can't remember the exact site right offhand, and it specifies in there the makeup of code enforcement boards, and we're okay with the 5 that we choose and the method that we use. But the 2 alternates, it restricts you to 2 alternates instead of 5. Currently, we only have 2 alternates, but there is one individual that came up that I think Commissioner Mayfield was recruiting, and so it's depending on what the commission wants to do with the makeup of the board. They're your appointees, but if you wanted to, there are some new people that are interested in serving, and I'll leave that all back up to you. But the main thing, and I guess it's a question for Glenn, if we just stick with the 2 alternates, does that require us to have to go back and change the ordinance?
Well, I would suggest you change the ordinance simply to say in accordance with state law. That way you're not doing, the state law says you can either have a 5 or 7-member board, that's your choice, and 2 alternates, and selected by the commission. So you already have a 5-member board, and as Bob says, practically you have 2 alternates now, though your ordinance permits up to 5 additional alternates. So I simply recommend you change your ordinance to say code enforcement board shall be in accordance with state law. I'm assuming you still want 5 members. You could change to 7, but if you have 5 members and then 2 alternates, you'd be fine. And unfortunately, the other person might have to wait a little bit until there's an opening.
I think the only thing that my recommendation would be in that ordinance, since you specify how the alternates are chosen, and you're only picking 2 amongst the 5 of you, so I don't know what method you would like to use for picking the 2 alternates. Because right now, like I said, you pick the regular appointee and then you pick an alternate. So I think,
Right.
I agree with Glenn, let's keep it as simple as we can, but ultimately we're going to say, okay, well, how do we do this now? And I think it's better.
You're right, Bob. You may want to have a companion agenda item that says these are the members of the board, see if they're still willing to serve. I'm not sure what their terms are. I didn't look into that detail. And see, if those 5 remain and your 2 alternates remain.
So I'm looking, Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner Mayfield?
sorry.
Yes, I was just going to say, this doesn't really matter, but I find it curious that they have a state law about how many alternates have to be on the board. I find that strange.
So,
But,
you're surprised that our state actually did.
you have to have
that
2
level of
alternates, not
detail,
3,
but-
2.
yeah.
Okay,
It's
but I
that
understand.
home rule power we have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we wouldn't want to decide how many alternates. But anyways, I understand we need to line up with it. I get that. It's just coincidence, but took a long time to find, I was on the search for an alternate. I asked a lot of people, made headway with 3 people who were like, yes, and then they found out Form 1, and then they're like, no. And so then I finally found one who is all on board, and he's excited, and I was excited, and then I just saw this. So if you guys have anyone who is not interested, I have a regular member that maybe I would check in with to see if he wants to continue. He was appointed by the commissioner before me, so, and he wanted to continue, so he continued on. So I'll check with him, but this was all kind of new that you gave the final word. So if you guys have anyone that wants to move up from an alternate, and this guy could be an alternate, just let me know, because I feel like it was a big bait and switch, like, we need you, it's gonna be great, oh, sorry, we're full, you're not allowed to do it anymore, so. That's all right.
Now, these folks don't have to fill out Form 6, do they,
They
eventually?
don't.
No, Form 1, though.
Just Form 1,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, well, I'll take that as a no, or you're not checking with your people. Is there are there people that don't show or who aren't as available as much? Should we take that into consideration?
I think the last time April tried to get the board together, we had to use a magistrate because they weren't available.
Okay.
So out of all of them, I don't know if there's anybody that historically is not.
Not available the most. I understand life is busy, but if there are people that want to do it, I feel like we should try to get
I
people
remember
that
a
are.
couple of years, the board really never met. They rarely met, and then you had the magistrate, and then the magistrate met for maybe 2 years, and then the board kind of got reconstituted or re-energized just in the last year to 18 months. So there was a long period of time that I don't remember the code enforcement board meeting at all up until about a year and a half ago for at least 5 or 6 years.
It's because we revised the pickup truck rule and there were no
That
no
could
more
be.
people that had any complaints.
I'm
right?
glad you said it. I was thinking of that.
So, Mr. Mayor, may I?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Commissioner Campo.
On the spreadsheet, it has Mike Raskin, Mike Antheil, and Ted Dillard, but it doesn't have anything as their position. Are they all standing members?
Yes, mine is.
Yes.
Okay. So, what do we, this is on the agenda tonight to eliminate some alternates?
I put it on the agenda so we could clarify the issue and get our legal advisor as the, direction on what we should do. And obviously, the ordinance, I think, is the route that Glenn feels that we need to do. As a secondary thing, as, Commissioner Mayfield mentioned, she looked long and hard to find somebody that's really interested, and then it just kind of, the issue of readdressing this. And I know you normally, I think, look at it in November, because of the election period. I'm not sure where we are with terms of offices. I don't have that printout with me, so.
So currently, the members are Michael Raskin, Johnny Colson. I'm looking on this with you.
Yeah.
Mike Antheil, Ted Dillard, and the alternates are Loretta Hall and Naomi Omura.
Correct.
And Kathy Muskowski's on the board, too.
Oh, Kathy
There's
Muskowski
5.
on the board. Okay, yeah. So we have 2 alternates now.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
But our ordinance says that you can have 5, so, and that was my point. I said, my question to Glenn was, can we just go as we are and just only have 2 alternates? And he said it's a better route just to say, change the ordinance to conform with state law. But we have to come up with a system on how we're going to choose the alternates, because right now, each one of you has an alternate as well as a main person that you appoint.
Can we just have, we can approve the alternates based on commission, based on the commission, what they want to do? I mean, since we
Like
have.
the BZA.
Yeah, something like that. I think it'd be by commission consensus or something like that. I don't think we want to make it any more complicated than that, right?
I think technically the commission appoints all as it is, but as a courtesy in your ordinance, each one of you basically nominates someone and you all approve that nomination. So whether you keep that as an informal practice, you can still do that for the 5. And then the alternates, as the mayor just said, it could just be the commission selects 2 alternates. Whether they're the 2 remaining alternates, whether the new person, whoever, that probably is November. By the time we do first and second read of this ordinance, it'll probably be just dovetailing nicely with the November meeting when you're generally picking.
Okay.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yeah, I'm judging from the lack of responses from you all that all your people are happy. So I will, let me know if someone wants to leave, and then I'll let my guy know. Otherwise, I'll check with my main.
I'll check
Okay.
back in with
Okay.
my folks, but
Okay.
I think they're good.
But I can tell you my alternate will not be heartbroken. Space. Fine citizens, so.
Okay.
Vice Mayor Kurzman?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to a comment I made about a year ago when they had one of the biggest offenders, and God, I know the police weren't happy, and there were 2 people up on that commission that said, basically, we're not going to enforce this, and they let them off despite the fact they had a pile.
The commission or the code enforcement?
The code enforcement, I apologize.
That's okay.
The code enforcement, at that time, there was an instance where the police were there over and over, and they kept ignoring the police, and then it got brought in here, and it was like deflating. If you're a police officer, and you're trying to enforce the laws here of the town, and then you had one person that was on the thing that said, we should really have no rules. And this is the person that's sitting on the code enforcement board. And then the other person, well, they're going to be better next time. I mean, these people don't belong up here. These are people who have to make decisions to enforce our ordinances, and they're not. And I feel this whole thing needs to be reorganized if need be. But if you're welcome to go back, you can listen to the meeting, and to me, it was disgusting. I'm sorry. I still have a problem with it to this day. It bothers me. It devalues what we have in police, and might as well throw out the rule book if those people are up here. That's how I feel. They don't belong up here. If they can make a decision, when you get a resident that has no respect, and they're going to park cars in their lawn, they're going to bring up vehicles that aren't supposed to be in here, things are overnight, boats on lawns, if that's what we want, keep these people in. But if you want to keep the town the way it is, when these things happen, these are tough decisions. You have to look at your neighbor sometimes and say you're wrong. And you got to do that, and that's kind of, like I said.
I think there's two separate issues here. I certainly understand what you're talking about, and if we deem that the Code Enforcement Board is not doing their job, or there's individual members that need to be replaced, I agree with that. But I think in terms of what we're talking about here, I think all we're asking is, or we want to give the town direction to go ahead and change the ordinance to meet the law.
Did we,
That simple.
did we make a motion on that yet?
I don't know, I don't think so.
Oh,
I was
can't
hoping
remember.
somebody would.
We did? We did?
No, we didn't, but I think
Okay.
that's the first order of
Okay.
business, but I still think that we should, hear what you have to say.
Yeah, no, I agree
Yeah,
with
yeah.
that. I think it's two separate issues, though.
So, do you want to?
Sure, I'll make a motion to change the ordinance for the Code Enforcement Board to match state law. Is that good?
I'll second that.
Okay, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fender?
Aye.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes.
Mayor Tompeck?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kurzman?
Yes.
Commissioner Campo?
Aye. So then I'd like to ask Glenn, is there a procedure for a commissioner who might not like some of the folks on a board to go about revoking their seat?
Well, I mean, the way you asked that question, I have a problem with it, okay?
No, I just want to, procedurally, is that,
Is there a procedure for removing a board member for whatever reason?
yeah, okay,
Okay.
yeah.
You don't like
okay.
the color of the socks?
Right,
with their hair
okay,
color,
yeah. Is there a procedure?
In general, if there's no term for that board member, they could be removed at any time. Usually, when you have a term, then you're going to need some kind of cause from before the term's up. Now, thank you for letting me borrow this. So it looks like you have a number of people whose terms are coming up in November of next year, 24, and then some in 25. If there's a particular board member that the commission feels is not following the code, then you would, make a motion. I would, as a courtesy, certainly think you ought to notify that person. Perhaps they want to resign rather than go through that process. But you can then remove them.
Okay, so I guess I would offer to Vice Mayor to bring up a specific situation if you wanted to remove someone and go through that process. That would probably be the procedure.
This is something that I know town manager's aware of one of the members that going and doing their own investigations, which they're not supposed to do. The evidence is done while it's in here. It's just something that should be taken serious. They're appointed to something. This is a serious position. I mean, you're making decisions, and I would probably suggest maybe that each of the commissioners talk to the town manager, and the town manager go into more detail. I'd rather leave it at that than speak. Their terms.
I think I know the individual involved here, and I got some feedback from my representative on it as well, and it looks like that term is November of next year. That particular individual.
Next year, not this year.
Right, 2024.
Well, if I may, I'm sorry.
No, I'm just looking for a resolution to move on.
Yeah, just so everybody's aware of, that this was an incident that even this particular appointee didn't follow the instructions of the board attorney that's assigned. And, so I think there definitely is just cause if you all wanted to make a change. But tonight's not the night to do that, and I'll be more than happy to come back with some information for each of you.
Okay, great. 11C.
All right. 11C, legislative priorities, Mr. Daniels.
Yes, as you see before you, we have an appropriations request. And originally, we looked at South Sewalls Point Road reconstruction, or resiliency project, really, Phase 4, and looking at trying to get into a reoccurring situation. The problem is, after I wrote this memo, I started doing some thinking about this particular situation. We did get $1 million allocated for Phase 2. That money got funneled through DOT, and we're working with DOT to make that happen as part of our funding. So this would be another allocation. Phase 4 realistically is, even if we just look at the cash flows, is probably 3 or 4 years off before we can get to Phase 4. So I don't know if we want to go out that far. I was thinking, obviously with the environment, with the economy and the lack of able to get qualified people to do the work, the costs are still relatively high for this type of work. So I just put down for discussion Phase 4, but, we could either, ask for, more money for Phase 2, or I was thinking maybe something kind of off the wall, not off the wall, but innovative. We're trying to get our costs down for the connection fee to kind of enhance the opportunities for people have to connect up to the sewer system when we bring it in. And maybe that's the ask that we want to do this year and save Phase 4 for maybe next year or something, but look at, doing something to recoup that 8,000 to 12,000 figure. And if you look at all 706 connections and we can reduce it by, $1,200 or whatever that amount is, it's just more, and we can just continue to look for other funding opportunities as well.
The request we made last year was for Phase 2, and it was not a recurring request?
It was not.
Why not? We talked about that last year. It should have been
We
recurring.
did, and we even mentioned it at to the senator when we met at the office. So it's how they do the legislation, so that's why I put
No,
it.
it's how we put together the application. If you check the recurring box, it becomes a recurring appropriation. If you don't check it, then it doesn't. So we didn't do that. I'm assuming that we're going to need more money on Phase 2. I mean, we certainly looked at those estimates before, and I'm guessing they're not any lower now than they were last year. So I would support Phase 2.
Okay.
Commissioner Campo?
I agree, and we almost got no millions because that appropriation was not even in the Senate side of the budget. So, I'll take $1 million, and then I think we need to change it to recurring, but anyway.
Yeah, reoccurring.
Now that we have a master clerk, we need to check spelling. No, I'm kidding. But I agree with you. We need to stick with, Phase 2 and make more inroads on the road and the STAs and the river.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yeah, I agree with Phase 2, and I was going to say the same thing, that probably I don't know if it was the lobbyist input or whatever, but you want to ask for what you think you can get the easiest, and maybe are they more reluctant to give out recurring than they are non-recurring? Maybe that's part of the reason, I don't know. But I agree, million's better than nothing, so I'm thankful for that. That's it.
And then just on the remainder here are just more policy priorities. Obviously, DEP has been good for us in looking at, supporting legislative efforts that continues the funding for their resiliency programs and the water quality programs. And then the home rule issue is cropped up in our discussion tonight. We're looking at the tree trimming, the short-term rentals, and quality of life issues that we deal with on a local level more efficiently than on a state level. And then as we talked about, the Form 6 filing requirements, and then the 60-day pause on legislation that affects and impacts local governments. That's been a move that is taking afoot, and I thought that was a good one to put as part of our legislative priorities. Basically, as you know, the first day of the session, they had a unanimous vote for the workplace housing ordinance or legislation that basically impacted severely a lot of municipalities. Obviously, we don't have a lot of commercial area in our jurisdiction, but there are situations in other cities like Stewart and even in the county that had an effect. But that legislation passed unanimously in both the House and Senate and signed by the governor all in one day. And there was no input from local governments to say what that impact would be. So it makes sense. Whether the legislature would govern itself that way, I don't know. But if there's strong enough push from some of these cities, they might even be looking at a constitutional amendment down the road. So maybe faced with that, they might decide, hey, maybe we do need to guide ourselves more appropriately.
Can I just add one factor, Mr. Mayor?
Go right ahead.
Initially, that appropriation was not in the Senate side. Eventually, our state senator was very effective of getting it into the past budget. I just want to clarify that.
Well, you're right. I appreciate that. Okay, do you want to, Stan, do you want to go through the legislative delegation that's scheduled for?
Sure. The legislative delegation is that meeting that we just spoke about on October the 10th. The main push is the appropriations and the Form 6 resolution that we passed tonight, as it was brought up from the commission to address that as well. So I can add both those items. Usually, we give them a copy, our local delegation, we give them a copy of our priorities, but we only usually address our allocations that we're looking for and any legislation that we're pushing. So.
Okay, obviously we haven't filled out the appropriations request then yet, have we?
The form is filled out. It was due today by noon, so we filled it out, but we left it blank, and they're letting us provide what our special issue is. So.
I think it's just the preliminary form, not the long drawn out, if that's what you're thinking of. The other one,
Well, I wasn't, I thought, because we hadn't discussed this yet, that we hadn't filled out the form, but you're saying, we've got a place marker?
Yeah, a placeholder, because it was due today for noon. But, again, I can't speak for the commission. You all have to make that decision. So that's why I kind of put it all together with the appropriation and also our policies. And tonight, we kind of added the Form 6 is going forward at the delegation too, so.
All right, so at the,
Question about this.
Commissioner Fender.
What's Chloe's status on the process of all this?
She's involved. She went over our priorities, because again, I wanted to make sure that we're looking at the big picture. And obviously, the feedback with DEP and the Clean Water Acts and so forth. The home rule was something that we push ourselves. And the Form 6 is something, again, that she hasn't led the charge. But she gets these as a guideline for her lobbying efforts when she's up in Tallahassee. So this is kind of our task to her. This is what excites us. So each of you can add something to this, or we can subtract something. This is just something that you can deal with instead of just leaving it open to help guide you.
Well, I'd like to see the appropriations request in advance of October the 10th, so
5th.
October the 5th. Okay.
Right. Well, I'm basically going to be putting together language I can show you to tomorrow before I send it in. I'll forward it to you. I'm going to write some language dealing with Phase 2, again, with the increased cost and which is attributed to the supply chain again, everything that we had, with the inflationary conditions that we have. So I'll be wordsmithing it tonight.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes, Mayor and Town Manager, do you guys want a motion to approve that legislative agenda? I see there, I know we moved on to the legislative delegation, but did we ever make a motion to?
I think we did, and I guess I rolled right past that. Sorry about that.
Oh, all right. I will make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve the 2024 legislative agenda with the change of Phase 2 instead of Phase 4 for the appropriations request, and authorize the town manager to communicate the priorities to the town lobbyists, the League of Cities, and the Florida State Legislature.
I'll second it.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes.
Mayor Tompeck?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kurzman?
Yes.
Commissioner Campo? Aye. Commissioner Pender?
Aye.
Lost my train of thought there for
So
a
now-
second. So now we're back to the
Delegation.
legislative delegation. Okay, so that meeting is scheduled for October the 5th, is down in the same place it was last
Yes,
year?
same place. I believe it starts at 9 o'clock, if my recollection is correct, and
Okay, it would seem to me that maybe we should meet prior to that, so,
yes, I also mentioned to Chloe about trying to get a meeting again with the one-on-one with the senator and with our representative Snyder.
okay. I'm a little, to be honest with you, I'm a little dismayed that we haven't talked about this before today, but I guess that's just me.
Well, this is the first actual meeting we've had since the delegation meeting came up. So, we had the budget meetings, we didn't have a regular meeting, so that's why I put it on for today. I didn't even know about the deadline, which I should have known of being noon. But
Well, I
didn't.
think, that's what we were expecting out of expecting Chloe to keep us in good stead with deadlines. Yeah. Okay, all right, is there any other comments or discussion on the legislative delegation?
I'll be there to cheer you on.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Where is this at?
Down at
The
Solano.
Indian River College, Chastain.
Chastain
campus,
Center?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, right, Salerno?
I mean, if you'd like to speak, please don't hesitate, and-
Well, you are the mayor, so.
Just for the record, too, we did send out, our master clerk sent out an appointment to each of you with the date and the time
He
as soon
did.
as we knew
He
about
did.
it, so.
Okay, that brings us to the last item on the agenda, which is,
Town manager goals and
Goals
objectives.
And maybe I can lead this one off. I put together, a few things here, and I
Just be on silent.
got a little out of sync, okay? Because the item one is a separate issue, completion of the communications plan and presentation of the commission. And then I've thought that we ought to get some regularly scheduled monthly update presentations of the commission on a couple of key items. We're always thinking about what's going on with our stormwater projects, our septic to sewer, what's going on with grant status in terms of preparation, submittals, and lobbying, and any ongoing projects. We talked in great length tonight on the disposition of the heritage property, but it would seem to me we should be able to get that resolved by the third quarter. And at the same time, hopefully we can get the property at 78 South Sewalls Point Road on the market, sold, and maybe retire our debt sometime sometime next year. We expect that the main line on the septic to sewer will be in approximately March. Is that about right, Joe? Somewhere in that ballpark? Okay, because one of the things we talked about is that we've had some people who would like to get themselves hooked up. So if the line is in, if the main line is in on, by March, I think it's a reasonable, at least it's a goal to put in front of us to see if we can get 50 people connected sometime this year, or in, fiscal year 2024. One of the things that used to attend a board meeting up in Orlando, and one of the things they used to do is they had the lawyer speak to us about Sunshine Law. I know if you ever looked at the Sunshine Law book, it's about 300 pages long, and I think we know fundamentally a lot of the important things, but there's always things going on in the Sunshine Law, whether it be a particular court decision or whatever, or, a particular section that we might want to be a little smarter on. So what they used to do is, once a month, they'd have their Sunshine Law in a Minute, where the lawyer would bring up any subject, we didn't tell him what to do, any subject he wanted to talk about in the Sunshine Law, whether it be a recent decision that we should be aware of, or a specific section he thought we might want to hear about, become more understandable. So that's why I put that in there, and then, of
So is
course,
that a Glenn goal or is that a Bob goal?
it's a Bob goal to make sure Glenn does it.
Okay.
No problem.
So you get credit if he actually does it.
Yeah.
Okay?
If not, we find another attorney, right? No.
Okay, and then, of course, I added our normal, maintain a good working relationship with our local, state, and federal legislators, which face-to-face meetings, twice a year. So those are the items I came up with, but I'm sure that there's some items that, and let me just say one other quick thing, okay? During the normal evaluation on the town manager, we really do a good job of looking at all the soft skills associated with the job, and a lot of those are, very, very qualitative, and I think, that's a good thing in terms of evaluating his effectiveness in relationship with what we decide to do with the other town employees to make sure that he's met the, those goals. What I'm looking for here, and I think we need to do, is to put together some quantitative goals. And I don't think necessarily the fact that, there may be a goal or two here that he's not going to make should deter us from including those in the package. We want to put out something, we want you to stretch your legs a little bit, and or at least I do. I want you to stretch your legs a little bit, and if you come to us next year and say, I only got 45 connections, okay, you're fired. That's not really the point here. We're looking for, at least I'm looking for some quantitative goals that we can give you to let you know what this commissioner is thinking about, and I'd like to hear from the other commissioners as well. Commissioner Mayfield.
Yes. You answered some of my first question right there, which is good, but I wanted to ask you, because I know this came up when we were discussing the town manager's contract. Where do you want to tie the goals in? You talked about the evaluation we already do. And there was an issue with the extra money, or the up to 10%. And is that, how do you envision these goals in relation to the evaluation that we already do in regards to our town manager and how he gets paid? How do you envision that? Because I think there was some misalignment when we had that discussion before.
I think you're right, and I think it was up to 5%, though. Was it?
Right, yeah, I guess I meant 10% was like the total with the 5% that everybody got, right?
My original thought was, but I'll agree, it's not in the employment agreement, that the extra 5% would be a yearly evaluation of different goals, and wouldn't be added to the base salary. Because if you add it to the base salary every year, then you're actually being rewarded for last year's goals, or you could potentially be rewarded for last year's goals.
So then we need to, that would be something we would have to adjust in the contract, is that correct?
Yeah, I think you're
We'd have to readdress that if that's how we want to do it, because right now that's not clear.
Yeah.
I thought it was added to the salary.
And I didn't have a chance, but I will go back and see if I can pull out the discussions, the meetings that we had, the discussions on that item. That was my understanding. But, you know, when we voted on that last time, we agreed, hey, we'll go ahead and include that into
Correct.
the base salary as well. And that was okay because we felt that, you know, we needed to do that to make his salary more competitive because we'd hired him at what we thought might be a little lower
Right.
number originally.
Okay, so maybe that's a whole other conversation when we actually discuss the contract, but,
Yes.
I don't want that to get, it kind of gets confusing when you're talking about the goals and what they're tied to, so can we just like address the goals themselves as opposed to how they're tied to how he gets paid? Is that,
We can do that. That's fine. And, you know,
because the reason I'm going to this is kind of what the town manager brought up with, it's like if some of the goals, like, I don't really, you know, aren't directly tied to him, is that a great goal to have, like the sale of the lot? If you're going to tie money to it, it becomes more personal. Do you know what I mean? It becomes more, so and the sale of the lot is really subjected to the market and who wants to buy it. So that's
exactly right. And I think, you know, I don't think we can look at, you know, goals for the town necessarily exactly if it goes with the town manager. In other words, the success of the town is reflected by what the town manager is doing. So if we're successful in reaching these things, the town manager is successful. So how do we do that? We put that as a goal for him. And, you know, what we're really looking for is, and there's going to be areas where something will come up and with no blame on his shoulders, they didn't get done. And of course, we can make those evaluations when we review the goals at the end of the year. You know, the same thing last year, we had, we put one in, and I didn't put it in this year, was hey, let's get the PBA contract, you know, done. Okay?
I've tried.
Right, and, you know.
Talk about beyond his control.
Right, and I understand that, but I think there's most of these here that you may not be able to control every aspect of it, but you can certainly control to get the push that's required to get some of these things done. That's really what I'm looking for.
Would it be beneficial to like maybe get more detailed and say for like the sale of the property, have check-ins at meetings where you say the actual steps you've taken? I put this in this publication. I spoke to the, however this many times, you know what I mean? Just some more of a check-in of a actual
And any,
action?
any smart executive who has goals like this is going to monthly tell us, hey, this one's not going so well, here's the reason why, and see if we can change anything. And, you know, you might want to include that on a monthly basis, that you give us a 5-minute presentation, how you're doing on the goals.
I also wanted to, this looks like it was written by the town manager, and, but he said they were your goals, which I had said before that we wanted to work off of. Is that correct, Mayor?
Yes,
Okay.
these are all the ones that I've.
So the first one, completion of communications plan and presentation to commission. That sounds good, because that was something we talked about last year. But it looks like monthly update presentations to commission on key items is below it, as if it's part of it.
That just got lost in translation. That should be,
A separate item.
that should be a separate
Okay.
item, yes.
Okay, because I was under, the communications plan is with kind of the rest of the world, and then, okay. All right, that was one thing, and then, I had some ideas for other goals, just ideas, I'm not dead set on them. Maybe updates on the business area, the commercial area, new openings, or like a review of our zoning there. I don't really know much about the commercial area. I don't really hear about it much. We don't talk about it that much, except about the signs. That's about the only thing I feel like we've really talked about. So maybe just more commercial area updates. Also,
If I
know-
may, on that thought, just before it slips away, you know, we have been working at trying to gain more information from our business locations, because, you know, they'll change tenants, they come in, they start doing renovations without permits.
Right.
We don't know what's in there. Jack and Crystal both do a great job in trying to monitor everything, but part of that is our business tax receipts are handled by the county. So we're not even involved in the zoning letters or anything else like we should be. So
Okay.
that's one of the things I've kind of taken on and trying to improve that with the county. So if there's
Okay.
something that, as a goal-wise, that you want to put in there for that, I mean, it's just throwing that out as something that we've been,
Yeah, I don't have specifics on what exactly, but just kind of updates to us or. And then another item, I know we talked about the stormwater master plan. I think I remember Joe talking about that. If we wanted to have some goal involving that. This was just my own brainstorming session. I don't have details, but one I liked was the charter review committee. We've talked about that in the past, and I think that would be a good committee to have in an order of business. So other than that, I think it's good, and I appreciate you, Mayor, putting all this together. To wrap it up, I do think that if you're going to tie money to it somehow, it needs to have very more measurable goals than for some of these vaguer ones that are kind of like town goals.
Commissioner Fender?
I was just going to add, I probably have more to add. I think we can, or is this being ratified tonight or on September 19th?
Or-
Neither, okay.
Today's 26th.
Oh,
He was
I mean,
looking at the-
October 19th, I guess. I had that date in my head for some reason. I see number 6, maintain good working relationship with local, state, federal governments. I think it's is a great point. To that effect, I thought there might be a number 7 that is parallel but more in line with the community, ensuring continuous strong community involvement and typically around our traditions, such as the Christmas, July 4th and Easter activities, things that we do on an ongoing basis to make sure those traditions continue to live, I don't know. But I'm thinking there's more than just municipal, but it's also delegating to ensure that we do community-minded activities. Letting those falter would be negative.
I like the sunshine law in a minute idea, by the way. I meant to say that.
Keep Glenn busy, keep him awake over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking-
Let me do this, based on the input that I got and any other input you folks want to send me, I'll write up something, and I'll also try to explain a little bit how I think it should be tied to the employment agreement, and also I'll go ahead and do the research that I should have done before, and we can figure out if we think we need to adjust the employment agreement.
Sounds good.
Okay, that brings us to commission and staff closing comments.
we do have our tree day for a tremendous time.
Oh, God, did you have to?
Yes. And again, it's
Gonna make me leave.
it's the start of what we want to try to merge more in with Arbor Day and so forth. So, the problem is the heat, so we're doing the program from 9 to 11 here in the park. We have another arborist that has volunteered his time. He's more of a professional. It works a lot in our jurisdiction to talk about tree health and how to, basically trim your trees so you get a better canopy and for the community. And then the Satin Leaf arm of the Stewart Garden Club with Diane Kimes kind of coordinating it for us is they're going to be doing a presentation on, how you can grow plants and trees from seeds and how the whole process goes for kids. So, again, the thought process, if we get our kids involved in things, it carries it on through the traditions, through generations. And so that's one of the things we want to do, and, they'll be walking away with, either a seedling or a plant or something that they can
What's the date?
nurture. It's this Saturday, the 30th.
30, okay.
Again, this is the first run-through of it, but we hope that this might be one of those community events in the future that, just becomes a staple. The chief has helped me out a lot in this particular project, and, I was trying not to bother the police department because they're involved in every single event that we do. But I think it's almost inevitable in the future that, we have to, have a closer hand in what's going on with the PD and so forth.
Great. Love it.
Any comments from the commission?
Yes. I was really touched tonight when we saw the couple that was here, the way, if you were watching the video that they presented, to have water slamming up against your front door, under your porch, and all the expenses they're going through when you're trying to live peacefully, when somebody across the street can make a simple adjustment that might cost a couple of thousand, but it's costing them 20,000. And something's got to be done sooner than later. This is something I want on the agenda next week. One of the things that I know a lot of construction sites are doing right now, you're digging a 3-foot by maybe 6 or 8-foot pit that's filled with gravel while the construction's going on. That helps capture the water with a berm in front of it so the water doesn't go far. And sometimes it could be 2 of them. And, this home that they're talking about is sitting way up on a hill, so that water is just flying. And it's just, to me, if that was my home, I think my wife would hit me with divorce papers if I didn't do something. She'd tell me to sell the house or something. I mean, it's sad. You're living here for 20-some-odd years in peace, and that shouldn't be happening. And I think all the commissioners, I think you would feel the same way if it was your home.
I agree we should put that on the agenda. What do you think should be on the agenda in 2 weeks?
Well, what I was going to say is, why don't we ask Jack to do a little research, see if there's any recommendation that he'd like to give us in terms of helping the flooding issue?
Well,
And if you, Dave, you want to talk directly to Jack?
yes, I do.
Okay.
I'll talk to Jack.
Just so you know, we have been over this issue a lot with the
Yeah, I feel
road.
like, I was just going to say, we've talked about like the exact same issue, different
Right.
house.
And, everything that we can legally do right now is being done. Maybe Glenn and I need to get together and see out of the other cities that he represents, or maybe just we'll be the trail blazers on it and, look for something that we can do similar to what you talk about, Vice Mayor, and implement it in an ordinance. But we can discuss that. We can bring it up again. I'll have it on the agenda on the 10th.
Did you see the video, Glenn?
And Jack, maybe you can do some research, see if there's any options we have out there.
I can tell you when this came up a couple of months ago, I saw marketable changes, especially on Oakwood. Wasn't my issue, but they put that row of big gravel on the edge of the road, and it's done a nice job of keeping the sand out. So, and as I jog around the neighborhood, I've seen other construction sites too. So I was kind of surprised that, so I assume
Well,
there's
sorry.
a readdressment of that particular property. But clearly, we're doing stuff, and we just need to make sure
So,
it gets our attention.
At this point, since there's no ordinance, you have to get the homeowner to agree to do those kind of
I thought we had
things.
one.
Is that correct? Well,
It was already there. That's
Not
what
the thing
chief
that-
brought us, right?
No,
No, that was-
we've got ordinances, but the problem with the ordinances is at final, you have to have an area to retain the rainwater. There's nowhere it says during the
during
construction.
construction.
You have
Where
to
the
have
problem
that.
is.
Right, but that's what I mean, as of right now,
As of right now, I just have my, my ability to
correct.
work with the contractors, and they like, last time we had this incident, I went to every one of those sites, and every one of them complied immediately.
Right.
Even this one. And that's water, it's not mud, like last time it was the mud that was sliding off. At least they were able to keep back the dirt and everything else. It's just water. Problem with that house, it's lower than the road.
Yeah.
So it's always have gotten water. That porch has been there since the house was built. They just replaced it. But it didn't happen
But any-
overnight
and-
because of this house being under construction for the last 6 months.
Anything that would happen right now for those people would have to be, the owner would have to agree to do something, I'm trying to ask, as opposed to there's not an ordinance, we're not enforcing
Right.
at this point in their construction. So right now, it's a matter of trying to work with the owner and be like, please, do you.
Yeah, and he's got a plan in place
Okay.
when it's completed to hold his water. He does.
That's the problem.
He does. It's just a problem right now, it's under construction, and what do you do for that? Well,
construction is
he's
a long
done some
time.
things to try to curb it. Apparently, this was a lot of rain that came down today. It really was.
And it's the
Yeah,
driveways
on
usually
time.
that are the problem, right? The dirt driveways?
Well, yeah, and he's got a plastic driveway right now to stop the dirt, to hold the dirt back. It's just water that's running off right now.
It's a water slide.
Yeah, it is.
So the three of you will get together and we'll have some suggestions at the
Yeah.
next meeting.
We're supposed to have a meeting with them, I believe Bob said, on Thursday with the homeowners.
Yeah, we're going to try to set one up with homeowner first.
The one that's under construction?
No, the 160 that we're.
But I'll get the other one involved too.
Okay, great, thank you. That's good memory. I almost,
Any other comments from the commission?
no,
If not, motion to adjourn.
motion.
We're adjourned.
Okay.